My dear students, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I hope that all of you are doing good and doing absolutely fine during this COVID-19 situation, and you're not giving up your studying and you're not lagging behind as well, since we are trying our best just to keep you at pace with your education. But what you need to do, if you haven't subscribed to our channel, please do subscribe. Just YouTube, International University of Scholars, and then just click in the subscribe button so that you remain updated with all the necessary information regarding your classes. So I hope that all of you are doing so, and if you haven't, do it immediately. So it's our English Critical Theory class. The code number is ENG24, and this will be our lecture number 3 for the final term. Okay, we are moving towards our final term. So I hope that you can hear me absolutely fine, and if you find that if there is any kind of like audio glitches, meaning that if you can hear, make sure that you use the headphone so that you hear absolutely fine. I'll be trying my best just to keep the lecture so simple and understandable for you so that you can hear and you can enjoy the lecture as well. So we are reading Preface to Shakespeare, and it's a criticism done by Dr. Samuel Johnson. Let me give you a surprising, striking information that Dr. Samuel Johnson had taken 9 years just to criticize and study all the things of Shakespeare. It took 9 years. Can you imagine that? It's almost equal to 3 PhDs that he had just studied on Shakespeare. That much analysis he had done. So understanding Shakespeare is not that much easy, because if you are trying to study Shakespeare at your own pace, you may study, but trust me, you're not going to understand Shakespeare until you have a look at Preface to Shakespeare. It's kind of a guideline how you should study. It's like something like when you want to play cricket, you want to play a football, then what you need to know some guidelines. You can practice yourself, but the thing is that you always need a guideline. What are the rules and what are the regulations and what are the things you can do and what are the things you cannot do. So Preface to Shakespeare is something that it's a guideline, a guidebook just to study Shakespeare in a beautiful manner. So let me give you one thing that if you can just check it out with me, that we call it SWOT analysis. You may sound that, sir, are we doing a business class or marketing classes? No, we're not doing so. What we are doing actually, we are just trying to find it out actually. What's that? SWOT analysis, okay? You can call it SWOT, okay? S-W-O-T, okay? SWOT analysis. What does it mean? Strengths and weakness, O for opportunities, and then T for threats. So this analysis is very much significant for an individual as well. If you want to analyze yourself, then you need to have that SWOT analysis. What are the strengths do you have? What are the weaknesses do you have? What are the opportunities do you have? And what are the threats do you have? So when you have this kind of things, that you will really understand that what are the things you need to do. So Preface to Shakespeare is something like that, you know. Dr. Samuel Johnson investigating for 9 years. What he did, almost, you know, just 96 months he had invested on Shakespeare. So what did he do actually? He just came up with all the strengths that Shakespeare had, and then he came up as well the weakness that Shakespeare had, because Shakespeare is a human being at the end of the time. Because you can say that Shakespeare is a literary giant, we can analyze him, we can't criticize him, but we can say in that way, as he is a human being, he has the flaws, he has the pitfalls, he has the shortcomings. So this is his weakness. And what are the opportunities of studying Shakespeare? What are the opportunities you will get of studying Shakespeare, and what are the things? And what are the threats you are going to face when you are criticizing Shakespeare as well? This is another thing. So make sure that this is what Mr. Dr. Samuel Johnson had done just to make things very clear for his audience, for the readers. He made the things very simple for all of us. So today we'll be just looking at the gist of Preface to Shakespeare. But before that, we had a preamble class, we had an introductory class where we had learned already what Samuel Johnson wants to tell you, what he wants to give you as an audience, as a reader or a critic. So let's go for it. Now, if you can just look at the slides, I've just made it just kind of like a summary based, and the main points, the main gist. So when we're not going to give you that much, it's not that we're going to read the whole text. It's not possible for us due to the shortage of time. But I wish that there was a physical class and we can read this whole book, because it's a masterpiece that we should be reading at our own pace. And at the same time, today we'll be focusing on only the merits, meaning that strengths, the strengths of Shakespeare, but not the weakness of Shakespeare. We're going to just have that, strengths of Shakespeare. In the next class, we will be moving on with the weakness of Shakespeare, meaning that how weak he was actually, what are the weaknesses that Shakespeare had, and these will be investigate Shakespeare. So let's go for it. So if you can just look at the slide with me, that this line, I say that this will be coming into your exam, that explain that line. What is that line? This line. Nothing can please many and please long, but just the representation of general nature. It's line number 7, okay? Preface to Shakespeare by Johnson. Okay, now, I just want to say you something that, talking about that nature, forget about that beautiful nature, Cox's Bazar, Sri Mongol, or all the beautiful things, all the beautiful natural beauties of the world. It's not that nature, okay? It's not that nature. I tell you that it's not that nature. It's all about the nature of humankind. Write it down if you're listening very carefully. Please write it down. Don't make a mistake. Here, the nature means the nature of the humankind. So let's read it again. Nothing can please many and please long, but just the representation of human nature. Because you can feel bored at some times, but the representation of the human nature, we love to deal with different human beings. We want to study human beings, very much deeply, so that we can get exactly what we want from a human being. We want to see every ins and outs of a human being. That really gives us much pleasure. And how a human being is defiled by a society, and how a human being is accepted by a society, why a human being is rejected in the society. So all the things you need to study, and that gives us more pleasure. That gives us some food for our thought. When you study human beings, you find that the representation is there. Even if you think of from Islamic tradition, that Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he was being sent as a humankind so that you can learn from his characters. So he was just a representation of the nature. He was a representation of all the humankind, that this is how you should go, this is how should be the manners. So it's a way of studying the human natures. And Shakespeare, what he did actually is all the characters that you find, all the comedian characters, all the tragic heroes, all the villains, all the antagonists, all the protagonists that you find in his lecture is something. He's trying to represent you, the whole humankind, okay, the whole human nature. And that's where Samuel Johnson, what he said exactly, he said that it's kind of like a mirror, it's kind of like a mirror, okay, just representing the nature of yourself. When you're reading Shakespeare, as if you can see that he's holding a mirror to the reader, and you can check it out, what's going on into that mirror. You can see everything visible. Oh, these things are going on. So Shakespeare is holding a mirror to you. Okay, and you can watch what's going on. So Shakespeare is really amazing in that case. So that's why he's saying that's the merit. Shakespeare's merits. Okay, what's the merit? The merit is that nothing can please many and please long, but just the representation of the nature. And his character is going to please you. His character is going to give you a vibe into your heart, and always giving you a pleasure, a beautiful pleasure of reading and seeing that. Now, if you just understand that if I just just go for it, just skip the thing. No, just Johnson states that Shakespeare's characters are not affected by the practices of certain places or by the incidents of short-lived trends or transient beliefs. His persons act and speak by the influence of those general passions and principles by which all minds are agitated and the whole system of life is continued in a motion. Just think of that now. Need to give a pause. I just want you to think. Now, what does this guy say? That his characters is not going to follow kind of a prejudice of the society. His character is not going to follow this tradition of a society. His character is out of tradition, out of prejudice. You can't even imagine that his characters are going to do this. His character is out of the box. Someone out of the box. Okay, always out of the box. And at the same time, it seems like when you're reading Shakespeare that the character it's always in a moving character. It's an emotion. It's not static. Okay, it's not a static something like that. Stop like that. Okay, it's like a motion. There is a variability. There is a variable. All the characters are variable characters. This is what Johnson wants to understand you. That when you are studying Shakespeare, and this is what you can also just look at this line. His characters speak in the language of everyday life and convey feelings and emotions which resonate in every soul. And this is really fascinating from Shakespeare. When you're reading Shakespeare, you'll be finding his characters is something that is not limited only to that, it's going to just revive your heart. It's going to give a feelings to your heart that, wow, I just want to know more about this character. So Shakespeare is someone great that he can play with your heart and with your emotions. It will surges your emotion, and there'll be fall of your emotion as well. So there's so many things that Shakespeare will be doing with the reader's mind. So it's kind of like reading Shakespeare or understanding Shakespeare can be difficult in some cases because he's going to play with your psychological game. And you will always be understanding that when you are a good reader of Shakespeare. This is what Shakespeare said. The question will be something like that. What are the merits of Shakespeare's? What are the strengths of Shakespeare that Dr. Samuel Johnson discusses on his book, Preface to Shakespeare? Then you need to come up with these sort of ideas, and you need to come up with more lines from the text. It's not limited only to my text. The next one. Now, this is also interesting, what Shakespeare does actually, that you can check it out, that Shakespeare has blended tragedy and comedy in most of his plays, and Johnson defends this blending of tragic and comic ingredients on the grounds of the new classical theory itself. Now, you know that when we are just studying a drama, then you have tragedy. Obviously, you have tragedy, by the way. You have tragedy, then you have comedy as well. Okay? And the tragedy is there, comedy is there. Now the question is that Shakespeare, he has invented something new for you. When you read those, so what he did actually, it became a tragic comedy. Okay? He mixed it out. So he had invented something new for you, and he's saying that this is what I have for you. It's not you can't call my drama a tragedy. You cannot call my drama wholly that it's a comedy. You have to call it what? A tragic comedy. This is what Shakespeare want to tell to you, and this is what Johnson had found after doing his research on Shakespeare. And he says something like that it's a new theory itself that Shakespeare had invented. If you don't understand that, just check it out, that when we are reading Macbeth, we find it out that the Macbeth is obviously a tragedy of Mr. Macbeth. But when we just start with the very first act, scene 1, act 1, scene 1, and you'll be finding that the ghosts are appearing and they're saying foul is fair and fair is foul. So now you are just, what was that? Good is bad and bad is good. What's that? Shakespeare is doing what? And the attributes of this ghost and attributes of those, you can say that, unnatural creatures on the stage, that makes us really thinking, makes us really funny. Now, come on, what kind of characters are there? And their speaking, the way of thinking is absolutely something like they are just a comedian. They're just representing something just to make you feel good or just to giving us a fun. But later on we find that they are actually, it wasn't fun, but rather it was the fall of Mr. Macbeth. So this is what Shakespeare will be doing with your emotion. He'll be surging you just to rise up your emotion, and suddenly you'll be falling with the emotion, and it'll be a crack is there always. This is what Shakespeare does for you. So what he does right now, now he says that just reading that. Through his plays, Shakespeare presents a world where all human efforts and activities have similar significance. In Shakespeare's plays, all types of men and women are fairly presented. Now, you'll be finding that during that Elizabethan age, because it belongs from that age, and there were so many flaws there were so many religious boundaries that you cannot cross that. Even during Shakespeare's time, the female were not being represented on the stage, and the male, they used to decorate themselves as a woman, and they'll be coming and performing on the stage. This is one of the flaws that you should know it, that there are no female characters will be performing on the stage during Shakespeare's time, and all the male characters, they'll be designing with the hair, they'll be designing all the things, and they'll be becoming kind of like a female, and even with the voice, they'll be performing on the stage. So, but when Shakespeare represented them on the stage, he will be never feeling that he did any kind of injustice for being a female or being a male. He'll be finding that all the characters are given a supreme power just to direct on his own way, just to exercise his own power. This is what we find in Shakespeare. So this is what Johnson is saying, that that's the strength of Shakespeare, that he will be giving you the same significance of the characters. He's not going to distinguish between the man and women. Come for this one. Now, Unities in Shakespeare's drama, if you just check it out, I know that it might be difficult for you understanding that unities. What does unity mean? What does unity mean? So I want to just look at the board. If I just erase that, I hope that all of you have written it, and just go for it. So the unities are really significant, okay? The unities are really significant. Why? For so many reasons. There are some technical problems as well. What are the unities? I'm just writing it big. Make sure that you just write it down. Unities. Okay? So the unities need to have something like that. If I just draw it here for you. So here it goes. The unity of time. Unity of place. Unity of time, place, and then characters, or you can call it man, or the characters that you want, or we call it people, just to make sure that. Okay, these are the three. So time, place, and the people. Or but the people doing what? People doing action, okay? People's action. So I can call it people's action. Time, place, and people's action. People's meaning that you can just, okay, I just make it more clear for you. Character's action. Okay? Just to understand that. Okay? But you'll find that it's given all the action. Okay, time, place, and character's action. So when you are, this is what Aristotle has said, because when you are just producing a drama or a play, you must have something like, there must be the trinity of unity. What is that? The trinity is that make sure that the time you're representing in your drama, it has it is being incorporated, it's being connected with the place as well. Meaning that if you are doing a shooting, okay, in Cox's Bazar, and then suddenly you shifted to Dhaka, okay, all on a sudden you shifted, the next shooting had been taking place in the Dhaka. Now the question is that how come? Because you were on there. So you need to just make sure that there is a balance, that how it came from Cox's Bazar to Dhaka, okay, how it moved to Cox's Bazar to Dhaka and how long did it take. And he says that when you are producing a drama, this must be the cohesion, that the relationship, it must take place by 24 hours. It must take place by 24 hours, meaning that there might be 1 hour, there might be 1 day, or just 24 hours, meaning that 1 day. So make sure that when you, the time is always, when the time is changing, like sometimes it's becoming night, sometimes it was Friday, somewhere it was Sunday. So how you are, make sure that there is a cohesion, there is a relationship when you are shifting the paradigm of the time. Make sure that there is a balance on the time. It should be logical. It cannot be illogical that you know, you're doing a shooting for 7 days, then after 1 year you're showing the incident of 1 year. But it must be a balanced equation between that three things. Johnson supports Shakespeare's negligence of the unities of time, place and action. So what he says actually, okay, now, if we just read something like that, the new classical persistence on the three unities denotes that a drama should consist of those episodes and incidents which cover a restricted time span of 12 or 24 hours and take place in a single area. Okay, it has to take place in a single area. So, but the problem is that supporting Shakespeare, Johnson states that the action of his dramas is dependent on some convention which the spectator takes gladly. For example, if the audience can accept that the person standing on the stage is Julius Caesar or Antony, and the spectators can also approve of moving scenes from one place to another or the span of an extended time period. Johnson says that the unities of time place are used to make the drama more credible, but the fact is that the audience already knows that it's a stage and not Athens or Sicily, and the person who is performing on the stage is a performer, not Julius Caesar or Antony or Hamlet. Critical. What he says is exactly that it's not, sometimes it's not necessary. Sometimes it's not necessary that all the time you'll be trying to maintain that time, place and characters' actions are all correlated. Sometimes it can break down, sometimes it can fall down, but it's not a fall. But Shakespeare's characters were so much different that the audience exactly know what the action is taking place and which character is performing that action, and they can very much distinguish between Shakespeare, Hamlet and Julius Caesar or even Macbeth. Because why? Because his characters will have a different attributes. The way Hamlet is going to behave on the stage, Julius Caesar is not going to behave on that stage, on the same manner on the stage. So there is always a difference, and the time, place and manner, in some cases we'll be finding that Shakespeare had broken that. Shakespeare had broken that legacy given by the great philosopher Aristotle. Okay, that there should be an unity of time, place, and time, place, and action. But Shakespeare, in some cases, we're finding that Johnson supports negligence. Sometimes Shakespeare willingly neglected that incident, that unity of time, place, and action. So this is what Johnson wants to say you, that this is the power of Shakespeare, that he doesn't need to maintain that time, place and action balance equally. Why? Because he exactly knows how to perform and what to do and how his character is going to perform during that stage. Now, so these are the things that I want you to know. So these, I'll be uploading that slide as well, but you need to listen to the lecture at first. I'm not going to give you that slide all on a sudden. You need to listen to that lecture at first. Then I'll be putting you some questions. I'll be giving some question to the CC, the class comrade, and they'll be giving you that question. You need to listen to the whole lecture, and then you have to come up with what are the things that I have mentioned during my lecture. I'll be asking you some questions. You have to just mention that. Make sure that you just write it down in the comment section, because I want you to learn from the lectures, and you need to understand that, because we are giving our highest effort making sure that you learn from our lectures. I believe that, and I trust all of you will be listening to the lecture carefully, and don't skip that. There's nothing to skip. You can give at least 30 minutes. You can bring out at least 20 minutes from your life, and you can listen to the lecture very carefully. Thank you so much for being with me. I hope that you really understand what I want to mean, and you'll be in the next class we'll be trying to focus on the weakness of Shakespeare, that being mentioned by Dr. Samuel Johnson. But till then, Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I hope that all of you will be staying fine. Thank you so much, and thank you so much for you listening.